Hello, friends, and welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. My name is Scott Cowan, and I'm the host of the show. Each episode, I have a conversation with an interesting guest who is living in or from Washington State. These are casual conversations with real and interesting people. I think you're going to like the show. So let's jump right in with today's guest. All right. So I am sitting here, well, by myself, but I'm in the virtual room with Tom and Lance of Beautiful Angle. And they have promised to tell me everything I want to know about Beautiful Angle today. But guys, my biggest question is, how'd you two meet, and who pitched this idea to, Tom, did you pitch it to Lance? Lance, did you pitch it to Tom? How'd you guys meet, and how did Beautiful Angle get started? Let's just jump right into that.
We met at the debut showing of Rattle and Hum, the U2 concert movie. We were introduced by a mutual friend of ours who, his name is Ed Dobius. He actually lives in Spain now, but he knew us both and said, "Hey, I know these other people." He introduced us and our wives to each other and said, we know these people that you guys should meet. And so he introduced us, the five of us, Lance and I and our spouses and Ed, saw this movie together. And so we can track it to the day of when we met without, I always have to look it up and I don't have the date in front of me. Whenever that was, 37 years ago and change or something like that.
Wow.
So that's how we met. And then we've done a number of, we were both just sort of creatives, in our souls. And so we did a number of other creative projects over the years. We did actually a comic strip for a while in a weird little Seattle newspaper. And then we were in a band together for years. And went through all the, trials and tribulations of being in a band and going through numerous lineups. And then we had a really good lineup for quite a while. And then when that crashed and burned, we threw in the towel on that. And then we were sort of, taking a break. And then, Lance, maybe you should talk about how you got into letterpress and how this came.
Yeah. First of all, I'd say, though, we didn't really crash and burn. Our drummer moved to Brazil, and it's like, what do you do when your drummer moves to Brazil? So
yeah. Okay. Well,
we had fun doing it.
Look, I have to interrupt because in total hijacking the thread, Tom, I saw on Facebook you went and saw U2 at the Sphere.
Yes.
Totally not related to anything we're talking about today, but how was it?
It was amazing. Honestly, it was really good. It was worth the price of the trip and the ticket. And I've been a fan of U2 since I was in high school, 500 years ago. And my wife is more fanatical U2 fan than I am. So this was our Christmas present to each other. And the Sphere is this crazy, overwhelming thing. But the best part about the show for me was just how good Bono's voice sounded. He sounded better in this show than the last time when they came through Seattle. His voice was just kind of miraculously good for how old he is. So it was a great show. Loved everything about it.
The reason I'm asking is because Dead & Company just announced they're going to do a 15, 16 show thing there. And
I
I'm
heard
torn.
That. And Fish is coming next after U2.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
For four shows.
So my question is, the band sound good, but was it overwhelming visually?
Yes, it was. We actually took, what do you call that stuff you take when you're going on a boat?
Dramamine?
We took Dramamine. Yeah. We were before we went, because I had a coworker said she felt motion sick the entire time she was there. So we took, and I have no idea if the Dramamine was necessary, but we felt good. And there were a couple times where I had to close my eyes and not look because it was so much visual kind of input, and it's everything within your field of vision is moving, and you're also 300 feet above the stage or whatever. So it was a little whatever the word is there, the disconcerting or whatever, but it was really cool.
Okay. well, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Lance, how did you get involved in letterpress?
I've been interested in printmaking for a long time, and I met a guy up in Vancouver, Canada. His name is Jim Rimmer, and he was actually considered a national treasure of Canada back in the day. He's gone now. He was just a fascinating guy, and he would do design type, hand carve, hand cast type, carve linoleum cuts, produce books, print the books, and they'd sell for like $300 to $600 a book. They were just beautiful works of art. And he was just the most gracious guy, and he kind of infected me with the idea of doing letterpress. And so shortly after that, I got connected to some different letterpress people. Some of them were at a school in Seattle called School of Visual Concepts, and found a press online after looking for months and months that I could buy, and happened to see it on eBay. It was $50. We put in a bid for it, and we won it. The only thing was, it was in Ohio, so we had to ship it, 10 times that to get it to Tacoma. But that kind of gave me the impetus to start. Now, Beautiful Angle was natural, birth out of that from conversations I had with Tom as a writer and me as a designer. So,
okay, so Lance, did you kind of bring this idea to Tom? Is that kind of, can we say you're the one that started that dialogue?
Tom is the brilliant one. No, it was out of conversation though, for sure. But
All right.
What did that conversation entail, Tom? What do you recall?
Well, we were both big fans of street artists, right? Like, Space Invader and Shepard Fairey and Banksy and these kind of folks back in the day, before that seemed as overly commercialized as it does now. And just graffiti art and stencil artists and all that stuff. Even taggers, I think, are fascinating. But anyway, so we'd been talking about that, and it was just a natural thing of like, Lance had this gorgeous press in his basement, and we were just like, well, we should make posters. It wasn't like some great intellectual, epiphany. Maybe it was actually, because when we were in a band together, we had a great time, as Lance mentioned, but it was really hard to get past the sort of friends and family circuit. You would do a show and you'd look out at wherever you were playing and you'd say, oh, hey, look, there's 6 people there that I don't know personally. How exciting is that? And it was just a lot of promotional work and everything. And then we did this poster thing, and about 3 or 4 posters in, it just got a buzz. It was just it
took on a life of its own. Yeah.
It was almost instantly popular, and you're like, okay, we touched something here. We don't really, we have ideas on why, but it kind of became popular. Yeah, maybe 5 or 6 posters in, but it did not take long.
So yeah. I think, if memory serves me right, you guys started this in about what, 2002, 03?
2002.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I had just moved back to Tacoma, and I was living in the North End. And both of you guys probably remember there was a website, Exit 133.
Oh, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was reading that a lot. And
Derek Young's website.
Derek. And I remember hearing something about this, like these posters. They were just appearing around town, magically in the middle of the night by, Keebler Elves or something like that.
Yeah.
And turns out it's you guys. And all these years later, you're still doing it. And I think that's a credit to both the two of you, but also a credit to Tacoma.
That's right. I think that's right. And then one of the things that's interesting about that is that when we did this, we actually had that conversation of, let's not make this so ambitious or labor intensive that it becomes unsustainable. Like it, you don't want to do it at this level of grandiosity that you burn out from it quickly. Because literally our goal before we hung our first poster was, let's do this in a way that we could imagine doing this 20 years from now. And now we're past that date. But you're right. Tacoma, when we started doing this, we're both marketing guys in some form, right? And I remember, trying to find, I was working for a company, we were trying to find like Tacoma gifts for clients, and you'd try to find something that had the name Tacoma on it, and there was just nothing. You'd go into the Sheraton Hotel in downtown Tacoma, and all the gifts there would say Seattle. And it was, there was just nobody in Tacoma was loving on Tacoma. So that was definitely part of this goal too, was to, other people other than us have described it as a kind of ongoing love letter to Tacoma. And I don't think that's too far off.
Where did you hang the first poster? Where was the first, did you?
Yeah, we know the answer to that too.
Okay. So where was it?
So we did this. We did this thing on the date. I can't. Was it like 501 years or something, Lance?
Something like that.
On the anniversary of. This sounds so overly intellectual, but we did it on the anniversary of Martin Luther hanging his treatise on the door in Wittenberg, Germany, on the church door. So that's what we did on our very first posters. We hung them, we literally stapled them and things onto doors of churches. The first one was on First Presbyterian Church, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now, no judgment here, but some people would say that this is graffiti and you shouldn't be posting things, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. I've read some comments.
Some people have definitely said that.
But I also think I've read some things, and I'm paraphrasing here, and I'm not going to get it completely accurate, but the city of Tacoma says, post no bills, yet you guys are doing that. And yet you're acknowledged by the city for being good art. I think it's a testament to what you're doing. So I think that's fascinating. But the first time out, were you nervous that you'd get in trouble?
Yeah, we thought, go ahead, Tom.
No, yeah, a little bit. I remember we were doing a lot of what's called wheat pasting, which is the traditional way of putting up posters, where you're basically using sort of a wallpaper paste and posting them on this, sides of buildings or on telephone poles or street poles. Mm-hmm. And wheat paste it's not damaging to anything because it's literally just flour and water, but it will stay up there for months and months and months, mm-hmm. even years, even in the rain. If you get it up and it can dry. Okay. So I just remember the first night out, we were on the corner of 6th Avenue and Sprague, which is a roughish intersection, and we're pasting up a poster on this light pole. And this police officer pulls up right next to us. He looks out the window, and then he looks ahead and drives away. And you're like, oh, okay, I think we're okay.
You're okay.
We are low priority.
So did anybody complain when you got, before, like you said, like 3 posters in, you knew you kind of were onto something, but in those first 2 or 3 poster runs, did anybody... Was there an article in the Tribune or something like that?
No, but Lance is going to tell you a famous Chamber of Commerce story.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So one of our early posters, I think it was, we pasted downtown somewhere, but we got an email from this guy in the Chamber of Commerce that said, "What are you guys doing? You're ruining our, you're uglifying our city, and stop doing it," and da da da, and we're like, whatever. And but then a year later, or within a year, we got an award, and he had to present us with the award.
And did he have a change of heart at that point?
I don't know if he did.
I bet he didn't, but I don't think he had a choice in he probably, we probably weren't his choice, but it was funny, and we knew who he was, and he knew, we all knew who each other were while we're shaking his hand, and he has this sort of pained, smile pasted on his face.
I love it.
Yeah.
So for 22 years now, in basically one a month, have you kept that pace up 10 to 12 a year?
Yeah, 10. I would say that probably 10 a year.
So you've done over 200 of these posters.
Easily more than that, because sometimes we do other projects that, expand that number.
But you've hung 200 sets of, I'll call it guerrilla art, around Tacoma. And it's still popular, which is just... That's
the perplexing thing, I think, is that we're like, every time we do something, it's like, well, have we reached our point of irrelevance? But still people show up. So we like that. It's nice.
And I think I saw somewhere that people kind of know the route that you take now. And there are people out there waiting for you to post.
There are definitely people out there waiting for us to post, and we kind of mix it up. We go back and forth between, because we love seeing the people, right? And we've got to know quite a few of them. So, like this last month, we had a guest artist with us, a really talented guy named Stein Hansen. And he'd never worked with us before, so we wanted to kind of show him a good time. So we kind of let people know we were coming out. And when we went out, there were some mobs of people, right? And waiting and, they all want their picture taken, with us or with Stein. Stein was autographing a whole bunch of posters. We don't autograph things. We've made that as a policy. But and he was just like, he had the time of his life, it was great. Or, he had a good time, I should say. I don't want to overstate it, but you know what I mean.
Right.
And then other nights we know where everybody's waiting, and we intentionally go to a different part of town, and they all are screaming and frustrated. But then somebody will find one, or they'll find, because we like to hang big blocks of posters. They just look great if you could hang 20 in a big grid or something. And somebody will find one and they'll post it online, and then everybody will rush over there to grab one or something. So it's still really fun either way you do it. But we intentionally like to, sometimes we like to make it easy on folks, and sometimes we do it as more of a sort of a, wild and woolly treasure hunt.
All right. So
one of the things we learned early on that I appreciate was that more than just self-expression or community conversation, having some predictable spots where people show up was a great community connector. It's like people met their neighbor and they said, "Oh, I have this poster, I have that poster," and that's a great benefit that we've learned from doing this project.
How many posters do you print in a run typically? We usually print about 120, and we hang up 80. So we give away whatever that is, 8/12. What is that? 4, 6, 2/3. We give away 2/3 of the posters for free to, we put them out on the street, and then we save the other third to sell to support the project.
Okay. And when I'm on the website, there's different prices for the posters. How do you determine, I think I know the answer, but how do you determine I'm not involved, but how do you guys price your posters?
Yeah, we have this sort of like streetwear pricing thing of trying to create this sort of intentional scarcity. So if you get one early, basically take the number of posters and divide it into 1,500. So if we have 30 or more, they'll be $50 a piece. That's as cheap as they get. And if we have one left, it'd be $1,500. If we have 3 left, it'd be $500. So that's how it works.
And not the ones I like, because I like a lot of them, but the Sonic Sky one's just not available. So I missed out. I don't know 1,500. I'm not I'm not a Sonics fan anymore, so I don't know if I'd drop $1,500 on it. I might, guys.
It's fun. So we do occasionally. We do an event every spring that's coming up in, what is it, April? It's called
I
Ways
believe
Goose,
so.
and it's a print arts kind of gathering and show, and we sell posters there. And you'll have people who will walk up to our little table and they'll say, $50 for a poster? Are you kidding me? It's just a piece of paper. And then somebody else will walk up right after them and say, how much is this one? And we'll say, ooh, that one's $750. And they're like, okay, do you take a check? So it's just, the value is whatever it is to the person, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. How do you, so now I'm going to ask creative questions, you guys are being artists here, but what's the workflow like? How do you guys decide? Like, are you working on a design now? What's your, I don't want to call it your next design, but are you guys brainstorming a design? Okay. Well, how do we do that? How do you guys do that? What's your creative process?
Well, this current poster we're doing with a guest artist again, Stan Shaw. And Tom came up with the idea of doing a boxing poster. And we reached out to Stan and he's like, yeah, I'd love to do that with you. So that's as much as, we can say about that one. But,
but that's pretty typical.
Yeah. But it's interesting. There are limitations with letterpress that kind of corral us into certain choices. For example, one holiday season, we were going to do a holiday themed poster, and Tom wrote these great words, but I just did not have the tenacity to hand set each letter for this long paragraph or whatever it was. And so we scrapped it and decided, okay, let's just do something on the fly. And we designed something on the fly, and I liked how it turned out. I thought it was great. So we get the full range of having a fully developed concept ahead of time or working on the fly and so on. One of our great posters that's sold out, we did with Art Chantry. And can I swear on this show? Am I able to swear on this show?
You can. It's Art Chantry. So Go ahead.
We were doing this thing with Art Chantry, and it was great. And we had the words and everything ahead of time, but we were designing again on the fly. And he's like, oh, let's see what we got here to work with. Why don't we take all this round shit here and gather up all the round shit and we'll cram it in here, and that'll be one layer of the poster. And so it can be very organic like that. And we like that. We like the process.
We rarely have a long-term agenda of like, people ask us what we make posters about. And I always think of them as ads, kind of, because we are, like Lance is a graphic designer. We think of it as that sort of being true to the poster art form, and posters usually advertise something. But so we just sort of advertise whatever we feel like talking about, But it's really, generally Lance says, hey, I want to do a poster about this, or I'll say, I want to do a poster about that. And the other person almost always says, okay. And that's that's about as brutal as our creative arguments become.
Yeah. So, in fact, one time we had gotten an art grant from the city, and we had proposed doing kind of like a story arc through our posters for 18 months, and just that little change in our approach made it so laborsome to do and keep up with. That we're like, oh, let's not do that again.
It was exhausting.
But it turned out great, but it was just a different approach.
So one of the things I've seen is you guys do this because you're the client. You're not working for a client. You get to have complete, total artistic control. It seems like if you had agreed to a story arc, that you're giving away some of that artistic control by being, you've laid out 18 months of content. And I think being that you can do whatever you want without the client having a voice. But how does that work when you work with a third party, an artist? I mean, you have to help them with their vision, right? I mean, now it's three people's vision, not just two of you.
we're careful on who we work with. We are both sort of art snobs, I would say. I mean, it's true that like we look around at a lot of folks' stuff and go, "Ooh, no," and you know, I want to be careful how we say that, because there's so many people doing amazing work that want to work with us. In fact, there's a number of people who we've asked to collaborate with us who've said no to us. So. Okay. You know, so that's cool too. But when you bring in another artist, you bring them in understanding that it's going to be a collaborative process. So it's riskier.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
So
this boxing poster we're doing with Stan, and Stan is a guy that we worked with more than anyone else, and he's just a ridiculously talented illustrator. And he is an old Art Chantry buddy. He did a lot of cover illustrations for The Rocket and things back in the glory days of Seattle grunge. But so we sent him like, here's a very rough concept of this, you know, boxing poster. And it was very standard boxer in the gym, you know, sort of a thing. And it's a poster about Sugar Ray Seals, legendary Tacoma gold medal winner.
Yep.
And then Stan came up with a completely different idea on it, and you were like, you know, if I'm being honest, it made me a little uncomfortable when I first saw it, but it's so beautiful. The artwork is so good that you just like, okay, you can't really argue just with the quality of it. And then we've actually printed half of it, and it's so gorgeous. And I mean, credit to Stan on that. It's just his work on it is beautiful.
And we do really, when we're working with guest artists, we really do try and free them up to express their vision, as opposed to like us getting them to work for us. They're not working for us.
Right. One of the posters, I've got lots of questions now about the posters themselves, but you have one poster that's kind of a timeline of Tacoma music. Now, that how on earth do you accomplish that with letterpress? Because I have a friend that has a letterpress down in California, and you know, he's talented. I see a lot of stuff that he does, and then I looked at that poster and I went, how'd you guys accomplish that from a technical standpoint?
From a technical standpoint, the actual image, which is kind of like tree rings, where it's actually just a vinyl record inked up and printed to create a kind of stump of a tree, you know, and you see the rings. And then we pointed to various points along that continuum to describe different interesting facts about the music history in Tacoma. And it got to be so complex that I could not handset type to do that. So we actually had a plate made, a magnesium plate. So I basically created a digital file for the content portion, had a plate made, and used that for the fine line work in the small type.
Okay. And fun fact, I was at 2 of those events in my life. There's 2
Oh, really? Which 2?
I was at the David Bowie concert, and I was at the String Cheese Incident concert. So
wow.
I was a little surprised you put String Cheese in there.
What was the second one?
String Cheese. They played it. They recorded their live on the road in Tacoma.
Oh yeah, nice.
They were at the UPS Fieldhouse.
Yeah.
I was to that.
Art Chantry's getting a lot of press here, but he was a good source for a lot of that content information that we were trying to dig up. And Tom was great at helping find that too.
So
yeah, it was fun. That's one of my favorite ones we've done.
Yeah, give the attention to Art for a second. I sat down with him at his studio, and I think I have 4 hours of recordings with him. I still haven't figured out what to do with them. It was, I'd never met him before. It was a really fun time. Yeah, what a character. Let's just go with what a character. And so, yeah. So
I love him.
So the route, I do want to talk about the route. You guys kind of mix it up, but if I had what neighborhoods do you typically post in? Yeah, I've heard Hilltop, North End, but where else do you guys go?
Yeah, we try to mix it up as much as we can, but yeah, Lincoln District is another one. Oh, go ahead, Lance. Yes.
We do Stadium, we do 6th Ave, we do downtown, of course. Lincoln, we like to get over there. South Tacoma Way, down that way. So
You
we
ever do
try to spread it
McKinley?
around.
Do you go up to McKinley Hill?
We have done some that way, but not often. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But if the topic of the poster relates to something, that's also another draw to a certain area or otherwise.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, one of our early posters was about the Murray Morgan Bridge, and we posted one on the bridge. And that one actually was one of the impetus for kind of propelling our project forward, because it made the front of the Tribune paper.
The longevity, you guys. I mean, that's the thing here that it just keeps coming back in my mind, is the longevity of this collaboration, this project that you guys do. It's just kudos to both of you. I mean, 20 plus years, and at the same time, it's kudos to Tacoma for being a good participant in it too.
For sure.
It's easy to work with. It's easy to work with such great words that Tom usually is the one crafting. It makes it easy to do.
Yeah.
You say that.
Compliments all around.
Yeah, you say that, but both of you guys, I mean, seriously, 20 years of doing this is... There's
a thing, I mean, we think about, like, one of the things I always say about Tacoma, there's a person that I know who's moving down here and is a musician. And I said, you know, one of the great gifts that you'll find that Tacoma has is that Tacoma needs you.
Right.
There's this, if people are really dig deep on what they want in life, most people want to have some sort of purpose and, you know, kind of connections to other folks. And Tacoma has both those things. It gives you a purpose of, like, this, you know, if you post this stuff around Seattle's like, that's nice, but they don't need it, you know, and Tacoma really needs it. You know, they need a little love. They need a little, soft caresses. And so, and we're not always, we are critical sometimes too, but I think that's, you know, we try to think of ourselves as being in relationship with the city. And like, you're right, we post these things on telephone poles, and right above our posters, a little sign that reminds us of the, of the legal statute that says it's illegal to post these and how much we could be fined for each one. But we remind ourselves that, like, our city mayor and a lot of our city council people have these posters hanging in their offices, and we've gotten awards from the city. So hopefully, if it ever comes to that, we'll have some people in our court, literal court.
Yeah, you guys, after the length of time, I'd really, unless there was a radical change in how the city of Tacoma conducts itself, I don't think you're at a lot of risk here. What do you guys get out of it? And I mean that in the sense of, from a fulfillment standpoint, for this many years to be doing this, why? Why every month do you keep doing this?
I want to hear Lance's answer to this.
I think there's a couple real deep reasons, like the friendship that Tom and I have, or connection to people, like working with Stan Shaw on a poster together. Doing this type of work, the actual physical part of doing it, is really a great thing to do with other people, and gives you a chance to be together in a way that's different than just sitting over a beer. And so those are the things I really appreciate. I do also like the opportunity to try again at creating something beautiful. So sometimes our posters are like, it's not my favorite, but I get to try next month, get to try again, you know, and I learn and grow as an artist because of that.
Okay. Tom,
I mostly like the shameless ego strokes. It doesn't hurt. I'm telling you. You go out on a Tuesday night and you have all these people saying, "Oh, we love you guys. Thank you so much," and you can't help but feel better about yourself by the time you go to bed.
I love that.
Okay. Yeah.
One thing I saw in doing my research is that you've got a Facebook group with like over 4,000 people following you,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool. You've done interviews before. You guys are not, you don't shy away from publicity, which I think is great, but you also don't seem like you come across as being needy for it either.
Yeah, we're not big self promoters,
right? But you don't shy away from it. If somebody reaches out to you, like, so Lance, I don't know if you know this, so Tom, his latest book, I saw a picture of the book cover on Facebook. I said, "Oh, that looks cool." The art caught my eye. I reach out to him, thinking he's an author, and he is an author. I don't mean but I didn't know that he was. The two of you, I didn't know there was this connection, and then I'm like, all of a sudden I realized it's like, oh my gosh, and then I asked him if he would be willing to do this conversation, and he said he was, yeah, I think so, Lance, I think we'd like to do this, and I was like, you guys were very approachable about it, and I just once again I don't want to say this publicly. I'm going to, Tom. I told you, and Lance, I grew up in Tacoma in the 60s and 70s. I graduated high school in 1980. I couldn't wait to get out of there. I did not like Tacoma. Please don't send me hate mail, people. I moved back to Tacoma in like 2001, 2002, when my son came to live with me full time. I lived up on the North End. I enjoyed it a great deal. Lived out in, until about 7 years ago, lived out in the Parkland area. Nobody likes Parkland. And I have this love-hate relationship with Tacoma, but after talking to Tom about his book and the other things that we talked about, I actually told my wife, I go, God, I could see moving back there. And that's like, people that know me, I'm not a big fan of Western Washington. And yet you guys, the two of you have, not painted, but I have this kind of soft spot, this fondness for Tacoma, and Tom had said Tacoma needs you, and that struck a chord. I mean, I'll be honest with you, that struck a chord. There's something about Tacoma, and I don't know how to articulate it, but I think it has something to do with like what you guys are doing, what the community there is doing in general. It's the redheaded stepchild of Seattle. I don't know. That's not fair to say.
Yeah.
And there's, I mean, and all those things, and just, we should pause and just say, we are just one little teeny part of the arts community and the kind of community down here. There's so many people doing things for their fellow citizens, and there's just a lot of people who work hard at trying to make this place better and more connected, and there's a great art scene, and there is a difference to it, because if you say, hey, I'd like to be involved, the general answer is like, yeah, that's great, come and be involved.
Yeah, that's one thing that really stands out to me as an urban center, is that there's kind of this come on along attitude. A new artist moves into town, and it's not like, oh, you need to be vetted by the artist elite. No, it's like, oh, come on, we're doing this other thing, come do it with us, or do your thing and let's dive in together. And that's, I think, really unique for an urban culture center.
Yeah. No, and
there's that's just, I mean, there's issues. The city has issues,
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. But I'm not saying that you two are the reason I would be willing to move back to Tacoma. I'm not saying that. I am saying that you've been able to like remind me though of like Exit 133. I hadn't thought about that site in a long, long time, and that was a great community platform for a number of years that Derek did. There was a lot of really interesting things going on in Tacoma that you don't find, in my experience, as relevant or prevalent in other communities. So whatever it is, it's keeping the community going. You guys, you're a part of it, and it's great that the community's still doing it. Lance, when did you are you a native Tacoma guy, or when did you move to Tacoma?
I've lived in Tacoma for 27 years.
Okay.
And my wife, born and raised in Federal Way, so she's lived within like 10, 15 miles of her whole life. And I moved back up from California when I was in my 20s to find my roots. My family was originally from this area. Actually, they homesteaded up in Birch Bay in the 1800s. So I got deep roots and came back up to kind of discover my roots. And Tom and Deb had moved to Tacoma, and we're like, hey, we want to hang out closer to them. So we ended up moving to Tacoma, or from the Enumclaw area. And
from Enumclaw. Okay. All right. Yeah. No, it's just it's interesting, people's journeys to communities. When I talk to people across the state, how they end up in wherever home is at that moment that we're talking, everybody's story is kind of interesting. So Lance, I always ask guests some questions. I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to do it differently this time. Tom has answered these questions before, but I want you to answer them for Tom. Okay. So what do you think Tom said when I asked him, where's a great place to get Tom's opinion, where's a great place to get a cup of coffee in Tacoma?
I hope he got it right, because the answer is the Method downtown. It's a coffee and skate shop. So
I feel like I'm on the Newlywed Game, and I want to say,
it's the bad version of the Newlywed Game.
Yeah.
Okay. So he did not mention Method.
Okay. What did you mention, Tom?
I mentioned Bluebeard, but apparently Lance says I'm wrong. Well,
there's no wrong
the Method
answer.
The Method uses Bluebeard's coffee, so Bluebeard is the roaster for the Method. There you go.
Okay. So another question I always ask my guests, and so Tom answered this one before. What did Tom answer to my question? Where's a great place for me to grab lunch when I'm in Tacoma?
I don't know the right answer.
Well, take a stab at it. He's giving you a clue.
Yeah, I don't read lips very well, so.
Okay.
Think of a place maybe on 6th Avenue with a great tap list.
Oh, yeah. I should have said Red Hot right away.
Okay. How about you? If I were showing up in Tacoma, where would you, Lance, where would you tell me to go to lunch in Tacoma?
Well, I work right above Thai Pepper, and so it isn't a common place. I just head downstairs to get good food. Okay. So that would be one place. But to take my wife out or friends, we go to Enrama. Is a great mixologist coffee or cocktail place with incredible food in the Courthouse Square, the old post office building.
Really? I have never heard of that. Not that I know everything in Tacoma. Yeah. I don't, but I've never heard of that place. Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
The owner is Chris Keel, and he's a well-known restaurant guy around
town. I think it's only open for dinner, so it might not work for lunch, but it is an amazing place.
For the right food, I can stick around for dinner. It's okay. All right. Yeah. So I normally ask those questions a little later, but we'll come back. So what do you guys... Where do you see Beautiful Angle in 5 years? What do you think?
Doing the same thing we're doing right now.
Just grinding it out, baby.
No, that doesn't sound like fun the way you just said that. So I don't think it's grinding. I think, I
think it is. Honestly, I would disagree with you. I think it is.
Really? Why?
I don't mean it in a bad way. I just think Lance and I both are grinders. We are guys that if you say, see this cart full of gravel, it weighs 3,000 pounds and our truck broke down and we have to move it 5 miles down the road. We're the guys that you want in the back of the cart. We don't mind grunting out work. And I think that's one of the reasons we get along is you're like, all right, we got to do this thing. All right, let's go do it. And I think that part of our personalities is one of the reasons this thing is still rolling. We're not trying to be the star that explodes in the sky. We are trying to be the guys who just keep doing good work and keep doing good work. Less David Bowie, more Tom Petty.
Okay. So going back to the work ethic and the grind. Can you guys walk me through the printing? So you got the design all laid out. You've done letterpress, or you've done a magnesium plate, or all that. But so now it's time to print. How long does it take you guys to do 120 posters?
To actually run 120 pieces of paper through our press, which is what's called a proof press. It was actually in the old days, it was actually used for proofing before it would be moved to a bigger press for production runs.
Okay.
Our press is a challenge proof press. What was the question again?
How long the printing process? How long does it take you guys?
Oh, yeah.
More than a day?
Right,
is it?
right.
Is it?
So
do we get together and have beers and print?
So yeah, that's right. So to run 120 sheets of paper through the press takes a couple hours. Actually do that. Okay. But some of our posters may be up to 6 colors. So you are, that's 6 runs of paper through the press. And so each color gets a run. So
and before you're doing that, you have to concept the image and you have to write the words. And then if you're doing it on a linoleum cut, which is what we do more often than anything else, you have to transfer the image to the linoleum, and then you have to carve the linoleum. And if you have a 3-color thing, that means you're carving 3 different plates, and then you have to mount that to wood. And that all that stuff put together is still the least labor intensive part of the whole thing, because the real labor is that you have to buy a press. You have to find, we have how many typefaces do you have in your studio, Lance?
More than I can count, actually.
Yeah,
and so you have, and so you think of all those.
Yeah, so you have to go find all this stuff. You have to reach out and build networks and communities, and you have to. Lance dedicates an entire floor of his house to this. People come over. We invite people over to print with us on a regular basis, and they'll come over and they'll turn the crank on the press, and a poster magically comes out the other end, and they're like, "Oh, this is so fun." But you don't realize, and then when you're done, you have 500 letters of 4 different typefaces, and they're tiny, right? They're a quarter of an inch high. You have to figure out where to put them all back, and then you have to put in all these spacers around everything to lock it in. I mean, it is really labor intensive.
Yeah, it's like doing a intricate puzzle every week. It takes you hours to do, but
you don't just get to dump the pieces back in the box. You have to dump the pieces back in 75 different little boxes.
Right. So, but the actual act of printing, though, is a couple of hours per color. All right. Now they've got to how long does it take to dry the ink? I mean, can you do 3 colors in a night? Can you guys put 6 hours of work? I'm oversimplifying, but could you put 6 hours of work in and do 3 colors, or is this a couple 3-night project now?
Yeah, we can do basically one color a night.
Okay.
And they're relatively dry in the morning usually.
Okay. So if you're doing 3 colors, you got to plan 3 evenings, probably evenings worth of work around everything else, your personal lives and all that stuff. And then you've got, like you, Tom, the design, the layout, the carving, all of that is...
Let's use the paper. I mean, it's just so much. It's so much stuff.
Well, I'm going to ask you about let's go back to that Tacoma music poster. From a hours of layout standpoint, how long did that poster take to, once you've hammered out the idea, and that could have taken you insurmountable amount of time, but how long did it take you to do the physical layout for that poster?
Because I created it digitally to create the plate, I would say it probably took a good portion of a day to do the layout and get it right, and then figuring out how it goes in connection with the analog part, which is the record impression itself and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to get the plate made and so forth. But yeah,
Right.
There is another poster we did probably 2 years in or something like that called Blender, which has the entire page, and it's a big poster. It's our largest size that we print. And it has a hand-carved image, but then it has the entire page is filled with type. And and so much, there's so many words on it that we had to keep switching typefaces because you're like, well, we are now out of ease. And so we need to switch over to a different typeface. So it's this, it looks like a type sampler, sort of. It has all these different typefaces just sort of mashed together on there in a really beautiful way. But that was backbreakingly labor intensive. And there's probably still lines from that poster that haven't gotten back into the type cases because
that's possible.
There was one poster I saw that was like a Lucky Charms box that was flattened out.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. Okay. How'd you do that one? Was that you took like a digital plate and then letterpressed over it, or how'd you do that one?
Oh, I've been collecting cereal boxes for a long time, and I'm not joking. And we cut them open to make a place to put a poster, and so they're actually on cereal boxes. So everyone's different, and that was a 2-color job. It was it was for Year of the Tiger, and so the headline was like, "It's great" or whatever, and we had an image of a vintage engraving of a tiger head, kind of from a circus poster crashing through the paper, and that was our image that we overprinted on actual cereal boxes.
So you overprinted on actual cereal boxes. Oh my God. Okay. Tom, this is directed to you because earlier when we talked, you mentioned you're a baseball fan. Have you guys ever done any posters that are related to Tacoma baseball?
I don't think we have. But I like that idea. There's another, if I can give a shout out to another great art project in Tacoma, there's this project that we love called Grit City Magazine. In fact, Lance's design studio, Rotator Creative, does a lot of the design on that magazine. But I do have an article in the next issue about legendary Tacoma Giants pitcher Gaylord Perry. So I do love that stuff.
I have I think it's a 1960 Washington National. Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off. I think you should do a Tacoma. I think there should be a beautiful angle Tacoma. There should be a beautiful angle Tacoma baseball inspired poster in the future. I think that would be really cool. I was saying, I was cut you off. I have a 1960 or 61 Washington National Bank Gaylord Perry Tacoma Giants baseball card somewhere in my collection. And I just found out last week.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And I found out last week that my junior high history teacher, who pitched for the Tacoma Giants, John Pregenzer, just passed away. That he pitched for the Tacoma Giants, and then he pitched in San Francisco for a couple of seasons, and he was kind of a cult favorite. And anyway, my love for Tacoma baseball runs really deep, and I think it'd be a really cool. There's my pitch. Do that, please. I'll buy posters.
I like it.
So I think this is just a really cool thing. I like the fact that one thing I heard was you guys have a poster sale, but you give the proceeds to charity, right?
We do. We give a lot, actually. A lot of our posters are given away to a number of nonprofits and so forth for their auctions or whatnot. But then every holiday season, we have a big party where we sell all of our kind of back stock really cheap, and people come and get the poster they missed long ago, and all that money goes to a charity that we've picked for that year. and then usually we can get some corporate matching dollars as well. So that's a great benefit.
That's wonderful. You guys do that. So what, as we wrap this up, what didn't I ask you about Beautiful Angle that you think we should get out there? Is there something we overlooked?
One thing I can think of that I think is part of the story is we have an incredible collection of vintage engravings that have come from print shops that have closed down over the years. And one in particular called us up and said, yeah, we've been in Tacoma for 3 generations and we're closing up shop, and we have all these Tacoma Tacoma-centric engravings, and we were just going to throw them away, but wondered if you guys might want them, And so that's like a incredible opportunity to like just delve into the history, through these artifacts. And we try to repurpose them into posters and find ways to use them that are unique and interesting, and kind of weave the history into the future.
So of these old engravings, what caught your eye? What, like, share with us a couple that you think are really quite interesting and intriguing.
They go back all the way to things like old sailing ships and old Coca-Cola ads and lots of faces of, like, you just have to remember this wasn't art. It was advertisements, right? Yeah, newsletters. Lots and lots of like faces of realtors and insurance agents and things like that. And then they go all the way up into probably the 80s. Like one of my favorites, in fact, one of my favorite posters we used this old and their color separations too. So there's like multiple things of like a 1972 Camaro. And it's just this kind of beautiful, kitschy car thing. And you're like, well, we got to make a Camaro poster because that's too cool. Yeah. And so like on that one, we worked with an artist named Chris Sharp, who does sign painting. And he also does like, stenciling of cars. So we got this cool sort of vintage stenciling style on like over the top of this Camaro. There's some just really cool stuff in there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's just some amazing imagery. You should probably mention the wrestlers, Tom.
Yeah, I'm going to say this in a way that I'm sure is going to offend somebody because I'm not sure how to say it, but we have this huge collection of midget wrestlers. So I apologize before and after that if I use the wrong terminology there. But I don't know if we could use them or not. We did reach out to a local celebrity bookstore owner that you should talk to named Sweet Pea Flaherty, who runs King's Books and is sort of the central figure of Tacoma's literary scene. And he picked up these wrestling images and could name some of their names. It was like, he's like, oh, that's Werner Krunker or something like that. And you're like, what? And we turn it over, and sure enough, written on there on a piece of tape is the name of this female wrestler of unique size. Yeah. So, but this was for some event that was probably held at the Tacoma Armory or the UPS Field House or something back in the day.
Yeah. We've got some great ones of like a vintage national park brochure, rack brochure or something, and these great images that are from the 40s or 50s probably. And so it's a wide-ranging collection that we love to kind of dive into.
We had one that we did on this poster, and it was an image of somebody doing something with trees, like they were marking trees to cut them down. And we took a picture of it. My wife took a picture of it and used Google image search, where you can use to like search images online. And sure enough, found this thing. And it's from this old Weyerhaeuser calendar of like the glory of stumps and, why clear cutting is so great for nature and all this sort of weird stuff. Because the favorite image in the calendar is this family having this beautiful picnic around a stump.
Yeah.
So type and engravings take up a lot of space. How Tom mentioned you've donated, I'll say donated a floor of your home to this. I mean, how much space does all this take up?
I would think probably 800 square feet is where we have our stuff, and there is a real niche culture in the letterpress and book arts community. So when a print shop goes out of business and word gets around, there's kind of this rescue effort, because we don't want this glorious wood type to go to an antique dealer where you can buy your initials and put it on your cubicle in a corporate office,
Right.
Because then it becomes less useful, right? And so we've had the opportunity to collect quite a collection of type and of various types, everything down from 4-point lead type all the way up to, 1 foot size lettering that you can put on the press.
Wow.
And everything in between.
Wow. So my last question about the press, I do want what size posters do you guys typically run? How big can this proof press go?
Challenge proof press. This particular one has a print impression area of 15 by 24.
Okay.
So that's the largest poster size we can really do. We vary our poster sizes from anywhere from like 13 by 19 on up to a 14 by 24 size ish.
Okay. I lied. I just have
one
another
thing
question.
You realize is that if you make something 11 by 17, it does not look interesting. And you have to get away from that size because it looks like it came off a printer, even if it didn't. So you have to change the dimensions from that to get bigger or longer and narrower or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
I lied. There was another poster that I saw. I want to say it was a monkey that was kind of die cut that you guys did.
Mm-hmm.
How did you walk me through that one?
Yep.
Because that's certainly an interesting shape and size. I mean, caught my eye.
Mm-hmm.
We do a poster every year for this other, in conjunction with another project. If you haven't talked to the Monkey Shines people, we can connect you to that. This Tacoma citywide glass art treasure hunt that happens every year around Chinese New Year. And so that was for of course, Year of the Monkey, which we've done 2 of those now because we've been around long enough where we're cycling through the years the second time. We just finished our second Year of the Dragon last month.
Okay.
Or at the beginning of February. So that one that's on kind of a paper called chipboard. Lance, tell me if I'm saying anything wrong here.
Yep, that's right.
Which is sort of brown craft. It's basically the stuff that cereal boxes are made out of.
Okay.
And so we laid out a bunch of type that if you could see the entire poster, it's just all this sort of nonsense monkey related type, like, lines from King of the Swingers from Jungle Book and things like that.
Okay.
And then Lance is going to tell you the rest.
And then we just printed sheets of that. So it's just this random type across the sheet that related to monkeys references. And then our friend Dustin Harlan at C4 Labs took that stack of posters and laser cut them into the shapes of a barrel of monkeys. And so they interlock and they can hang from trees and whatnot. And we gave away both the positive shape and the negative shape into the community. That was one of the frustrating hanging moments in our hanging history, because people would come up like they were rabid about it, and they're like, no, I want the positive one, I don't want the negative one, you gotta trade me, and you're just like, come on, you're getting a free poster, dude.
Oh my gosh.
But it was very popular and fun to do. So those were laser cut into those shapes.
Okay. I haven't looked at all your posters, but have you done other laser cut posters?
We've done laser cut type. Lance's brother was kind enough to do some laser cutting of some letters we were missing for typefaces and things like that. And even Lance designed an entire large letter typeface that his brother then cut out for us. So we are not purists in the sense of like we're only going to use 1950 and prior era technology. We're happy to mix it up.
No, and that's
a really good point, Tom, because I think one of the things that drives me as an artist is I don't want to regurgitate the past. I'm not doing letterpress because it's nostalgic. I'm doing it because it's a cool artist tool, and what can we do with it that'd be unique and fun and interesting, and how can we make plates or images with. And one of our famous posters, it actually has some line work that's just solder that's glued down to a board to make a line, an interesting line or something like that. And so we're very experimental in how we approach letterpress and want to use the craft to do new things.
Okay. Last question, promise. Is there a day or a week of the month that you typically post these, or is it random?
Yeah, we've sort of set aside Tuesday nights for both printing and generally distributing posters too.
Okay. So Tuesday nights is the night to be out looking. Now, you did say, to follow on that though, you did say every now and then you kind of announce it out to your fans that you're doing it, or is it secret?
Yeah, we're not afraid to do that. I mean, we like it's actually a challenge because Scott, we use Facebook and Instagram, but both of those social channels are starting to skew older. And Facebook, particularly, where we have our by far biggest following, but it's skewing till middle age and later, which limits your ability to reach out to younger people. And I would love to figure out how to crack that nut. I don't know how to do it. TikTok or something.
I don't know. TikTok dance, Tom.
I don't know if I can stand it.
The thing is, you don't have to do the dance. I think TikTok. Oh. Now this is an audio format, so nobody can see the three of us. We are not TikTok demographic, but I think that I think TikTok's where you probably would go and get those eyeballs. Those younger Tacoma residents that would. Tom, I know you have.
It sounds horrible, Scott. It sounds horrible.
I know it does, but Tom, you have kids. Can you enlist your children?
Maybe.
I mean, there you go.
Social media.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been on TikTok like twice, and I didn't get it. I'm firmly entrenched in Facebook. Oh, God. Oh my gosh. All right, guys. Lance, I have one last question for you, and then we'll let you guys go. This is a very important question. I ask it of every guest. Tom's already answered it. I'm not going to ask you to guess Tom's answer. This has to be your answer. Cake or pie, and why? Right. Why, though, is the important part.
It's time for pie. Okay. I would say pie is simple. You can make it from berries you find on the side of the road. It's tasty. It's satisfying and very comforting.
And
my mom would actually make me boysenberry pie every now and then for my birthday. So,
okay. Yeah. So are you like a fruit pie? Is like berry pie? Is that your thing? I mean,
pretty much all pie.
Okay. All right. Guys, where can people find more about Beautiful Angle? Where would you like people to go look? And we'll make sure it's in the show notes, but why don't you tell them where to go?
Yeah, beautifulangle.com is our website. You can see all our entire collection of posters there, and whatever's still for sale is on there. You can link to our socials from there, but join our Facebook group too. We love new members on our Facebook group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or follow us on Instagram at Beautiful Angle Tacoma.
Beautiful Angle Tacoma. Okay. Excellent. Lance, Tom, thank you both so much for taking the time to chat with me today. Really appreciate it. And maybe we'll have this conversation another 20 years again. I mean, that would be pretty, well, at my age, it'd be pretty amazing, but it would be very cool. And you guys doing this, I really am kudos to both of you. I think it's awesome. So thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks so much.
Hope you enjoyed the show. You can reach me on Twitter at ExploreWaState. I'd love to hear your comments. You can also visit our website at explorewashingtonstate.com. If you know anyone who would like the show, it'd be amazing if you'd share the show with them. This is the biggest way that we grow this show. Good old word of mouth. Glad you were here with me today, and I hope to have you listening to the next episode. See you then.